Hello, this is Karen from. What I wanted to talk to you about today was spiritual protection. Now, some people get their knickers in a really big knot and they're very definite that protection is a thing that we need to do when we are working with clients, or we need to protect our home. And other people think that that's just not a thing at all. So I thought I would address the issue. Now, when we're talking about protection, we're talking about energetic protection. We're not talking about security cameras and 12-foot fences around your house and things like that, but more your energy, your space, shall we say. So when we're looking at protecting your home, we're talking about the energetic space that you don't want. Yeah, sure, you don't want people that inappropriate coming into your space, but it's more the energy of it rather than the physicality of it, shall we say. So I'm going to share with different things that I've thought at different times, and I'll speak briefly about my thoughts on how things are now. Now, like you, my opinions change dependent on where I'm at in my life, what's going on, and what's happening out there in the world too. So when I first got involved in spiritual healing, one of the things that I was taught was that I needed to open up my energy centers. So I'm speaking about chakras here. If you're not familiar with chakras and the subtle bodies, you can have a look at either of my books, actually, Tarot and Aromatherapy or Tarot Healing. They both address that, and there's quite a few things on the website in the reflections area in the blog, basically. I like to call it reflections because it sounds nicer. And then I'm constantly referring to it as the blog, so I don't know what the wisdom of that was, but anyway. So there's a few things that touch on the subtle anatomy there. So I've lost my train of thought here, but anyway. So, yes, when I first started my training as a spiritual healer, we were taught, or I was taught, that I needed to open each of my energy centers. So the base chakra at the base of the spine, or the crux of the, the juncture between your legs, basically. It depends on, your training as to which and at what level you are sensing energy. So let's just talk about the base of the spine. We'll use that. The colour there is red, orange is the sacral centre, and we're talking about life force energy, that kind of stuff. There's certain organs that apply to each of these chakras. So each of the, I'm talking about it now, sort of explaining it. I hope that's okay. Because each of these major energy centers, and we have squillions of them, like even at the tips of your fingers and in the palms of your hands, many, many, many energy centers. And a chakra is the Sanskrit name for an energy center. That's more New Age talk. Either terminology is fine. And the word chakra means wheel of fire. It's a vortex of energy, unseen mostly, to the normal eye. Many clairvoyants can see them, like some people can see the aura. So I was taught basically that you need to open each of these energy centers from the base center, red, orange, yellow, green at the heart, throat blue. This is the Ajna center. Some people call it the third eye, sort of like a very dark, dark purple, like an indigo colour, like the colour of a juniper berry, actually. And then above the crown, quite a bit above the crown, there's the crown centre, where we take in energy from the universe, or, universal life force energy comes in from there. Now, they're the main recognised and long spoken about chakras, but we have many energetic layers that go out from the physical, and there are vortexes of energy in those as well. So it's not all static. But anywho, so I was taught that each of those energy centers had to be opened from the base chakra up to the crown, and that then we would do invocations and clear the space and all that sort of stuff, protect the energy within which we're working. And then after the healing work was done, I needed to close each of those energy centers and seal it with a flaming cross, right? So it was sealed with love, basically. And that would keep my energy intact. And yeah, that's what I learned at the very beginning in spiritual healing. When I did Reiki and things like that, there's a slightly different approach, but they sort of use the Reiki energy to set up the healing space. Now, I did that for a long time. I used to do an invocation to Spirit, ask for protection while I was doing the work, basically channeling energy, clearing entities, all that kind of sort of thing. And then over time, it was almost as though there was an integration or some kind of shift happened energetically. I moved away from doing that, and it wasn't really from laziness or being lackadaisical, but it was more, I really felt that that was no longer required, that this integration of the spiritual, the healing team, like the spirit that I was working with, had sort of integrated into my field, and I kind of didn't need to do that anymore. And that at that time, I'm just wiping little sage crumbs off my desk, sitting at my desk talking to you. And I started to see that. I queried it, and what I kind of got was, the answer that I got was, when you are standing under the waterfall, and if you imagine that you are under a waterfall and that water is falling down onto the crown of your head and running over your body and basically cleansing you with the water, if that water was pure unconditional love and you're being, you're in it and it's running over you constantly, do you need to set up a protective field? And so that was kind of the answer that I was given at that time. And so I stopped doing, as a general rule, this opening, closing of the chakras and being so diligent about my own energy space. Now, at different times, I went backwards and forwards with that. But I've always done things like clearing space. So, for example, if I'm doing counselling work with somebody or doing readings, I set up the table in here and do the cards. Somebody's sitting in one of the blue chairs. I'm usually sitting in this one. And, sometimes there's a lot of emotion and people's have come in with a lot of stuff, heavy emotion, fear, anxiety, those sorts of things. And it's like, I always think it's a bit like, what are they? Post-it notes stuck to us, yeah? And then in the course of the reading or even in a counselling session, as things are being resolved and the person is relaxing, they're getting clarity about things, they're dropping those post-it notes, for want of a better term, off. And they kind of collect down there on the ground, speaking metaphorically. So once they've gone, I don't want to leave that pile of post-it notes there or heavy energy, because the next person that's going to come in is going to come and sit on that chair and then sit in that. So it's very important from my perspective that I take responsibility for clearing that space so that when the next person comes in, they're coming into a clear energetic space, physically, energetically clear. And so it's just them, their energy, and in this case, me, and that the work begins. So genuinely, I do feel that it's important for all of us, whether you are working one-to-one with clients or just in your own space, to say you're having a coffee with a friend at the kitchen table and they're blah about their partner or something like that, and they drop all that stuff. You want to clean that up too. You don't want that sitting around, floating around in your kitchen. So things like using sage is a great thing to do. You light the sage, usually put a little plate under it. I've got a conch shell, and not a conch shell, one of those New Zealand ones, it's got the beautiful mother of pearl stuff in it. I forget what it's called now, but they're lovely. And I light it with a lighter, and I just hold the shell underneath. And what you do, if you just say you're clearing your house, is you come in your front door and then you move from left to right. So the first room on the left, so say you come into the living room, you will walk around that living room to your left and do that whole room, and then go into the next room towards the left, so that you end up doing a circle. Do everything, including your bedroom, your bathroom, your toilet. Bathrooms and laundries and toilets will hold stale energy a lot more. There's less flow usually in those kinds of rooms. And the intention, of course, we're using history here, and we're using plant medicine. Sage is the wisdom keeper. Hermit energy, big time. So that wise energy. Smoke is very clearing. It makes a space sacred. It's lovely. And there's, for millennia, like Aboriginal people use eucalypt, and they use the smoke in a similar kind of way to what I'm describing with the sage. The sage is more Native American tradition, but many cultures use smoke. All right, so you can just adjust accordingly. But the intention, it's your intention backed by action. All right. Equally, you can use a spray bottle, something like this. This is a lovely bottle with sage essential. Oh, bang, bang, crash. Sage essential oil in it, and pure water shaken up. Or you can use things like the sage. If people are diffusing essential oils, you can actually buy the water aspect that comes off the steaming process, and that is often what sage, this sage spray actually is. You can get rose water and things like that too, but sage is a good cleanser. And you can spray it over the top of yourself as well if you feel like you've picked up something. So cleansing your space is a really good thing to do. Even in your office, if you're an accountant, for example, dealing with the pressure of phone calls and stuff like that, all of that energy builds up, even the other people that come in and out of your workspace. You might like to clear that energetically, and it just lightens the mood, the frequency in the space, in case people are coming in grumpy and dropping their grumpiness there. So space clearing is important. Clearing our own field is important, and we can do that many ways. So one of the ways that I often share with people, something that I call golden bodies. I've learned that in India, and it's a specific meditation practice where you're actually using your will. It's kind of a bit of a different practice. I think I've spoken about that on a different podcast, actually, so I won't bore you with that here. But so we'll talk about white lighting because there's some sort of similarity, although it's different. You can imagine, like if you want to clean your own space, you can do this, but you can also clean a room or a house. If you want to be really fun with this, one of the things that I used to do when I used to travel from the Broadmeadows area in Melbourne and travel right across to the South Yarra area on the train every day for work. And that's back at a time when I was really learning about white lighting and working with energy and Reiki and things like that. So what I would do is I would white light myself, then I would white light the carriage. Now that had an impact on all the other people there. And then I would sit there sort of in meditation as I was travelling to work, and I would white light, basically energetically clear every carriage from where I sat all the way to the front, and usually I sat at the back, the last carriage. But if there was any behind me, I'd do those as well. Now, I did that as a bit of an experiment initially, and it was very funny to me because what I discovered is that it would change the way people looked. And I would encourage you to do something like that if you travel on public transport, if you ever go on the train or anything, or a bus, you know. In just the same way, you can white light the office before you get there. So what do I mean when I say white light? Basically, what we're doing is we are bringing the light of spirit, which is in essence pure unconditional love. We're bringing it in to our body, we're filling our body, and darkness cannot exist where light is. You know, when you think about it, at midday, under the burning sun in the summer, there's no shadow, right? So everything is absolutely crystal clear. You can see everything. In the light, there is no shadow. There is no darkness. So that's what we're working with. We are, with intention, bringing the light in, and you can do it. I like to do it with my breath, actually. It's a really good way to learn to do it. So especially if you've got a fair bit of time, you can imagine that you're breathing in that pure, unconditional love or golden light or white light, whatever makes sense to you. I like my light to have a little golden fleck in it, you know, little sparkles. It can be really fun. But you might be drawn to a particular colour, so go with that. Trust yourself on that. Trust your own intuition. So just keep that, breathing that in until you have the sense that the whole of your body is full of that light. And then keep bringing that in and filling the space around your body, like your personal space or your aura. And then you can extend it out into the room. Now, if that doesn't speak to you, what you can do, especially if you've got a connection with guides or a real strong connection with spirit yourself, you can actually ask and claim, bringing that pure light energy down into the center of the room and filling the room like that. All right, so you don't have to do it through yourself first. But it's always good to be clean and clear yourself as well as your space. Now, so this is just like basic spiritual hygiene, right? Now, this sort of brings us to the whole question about, well, what do you need to protect yourself from? Now, it's a tricky one. I don't want to sound too kooky, although I'm sure that I do sound kooky, is that, I mean, there's love and there's fear, isn't there? They're two totally different frequencies. And you could say that love is light and that fear is dark. So in truth, if we talk about the light and the dark, it's really understandable and it's not too woo-woo. These are two forces of energy that we are dealing with on this plane within which we live and move and breathe, right? I think that's what we're working with. There are times when the world and the majority of people in it are very light. Things are flowing well. And there are times where things are darker. And I wonder myself, and I do actually think that we are in a very challenging time now. There are many shifts happening in our world. And to me, the light and the dark are really working out who's going to rock the roll. So if you are a bright, sparkly, shiny light in the world and dark is trying to put that light out, it's a good idea to put some protection in place. That's all. Now, you might just clear yourself and clear your space on a regular basis. You might also do things like, see this beautiful piece of selenite? This is a gift from a friend, actually. And I usually put this on my tarot deck after I've used it. But I have some very small slivers that I bought from the local crystal shop. I actually got them from the Goddess Emporium. And have a piece, just really tiny, sitting on top of the architrave of the door, front and back. So basically, because what selenite does is it balances and clears and balances. And it's one of the crystals that you don't have to always clear. You know how they say you've got to put your crystals out in the moon to clear them of negative energy. Selenite, you never have to do that with. It's sort of a self-cleaning one, shall we say. It's like a self-cleaning oven. Sorry, there was that little interruption there. But anyway, let's continue on. So I'm talking about selenite and putting that over the architrave of the door. And the intention is that you're setting up a cleansing, balancing space. So anyone who comes in, they'll be balanced and cleared. And that includes us. You know, we go out into the world, we might have a difficult day, somebody might cut you off in the car, you can get a bit crabby. You don't want to bring that into your home. So, yeah. Now, I do think that clearing and cleansing and protecting is more important now than it has been before. So, but I really invite you to check in with yourself to see if that's right for you. Now, when I talk about this, it's not in a place of fear or weakness or victimhood or anything like that. It's about taking care of business. Like, you know, we want to have good dental health, so we clean our teeth. And that keeps our teeth in our heads much longer, and it costs us less when we go to the dentist. And so spiritual protection and clearing and cleansing on that level, it's kind of the same. So that's the approach they take with it. Now, what else can I talk about? You know, there's things like I have some crystals around about my garden, different places, some up near my gate, some in the driveway. I've got a crystal grid on a shelf on the front veranda. And actually, there's a blog post on crystal grids, creating a crystal grid on the website, which you're welcome to have a look at. That might be something that you want to do. You can use your crystals to set up an intent, hold an intention. I use mine mostly for the bees, the crystal grids. But yeah, I think that self-clearing and energetic protection, it's basic, logical, sensible stuff. You know, if you're going to go away for the weekend, you don't leave your house unlocked. It's basic common sense. You lock the door. You know, somebody really wanted to get into your house, of course they will. But you take care of business. Deal with the obvious things. And if something significant happens, then you can get some assistance to resolve that. But I think that most of the time we can take care of stuff ourselves. So there's some other little things that people do, like some people put witches' bells on their back door, and it's like a protection amulet. Different cultures have different things. Having a broom or an indicator of a broom, I've actually got one over the top of my front door. I bought one at the expo. I just thought, oh, that is so fun. I've got to have one. And even though I've got this beautiful crystal over the top, the selenite shard over the top, but it's a good thing to. Even things that you grow in your garden can be protective. They say that there are certain herbs that set up protection. Fennel is something that is often grown in a witch's garden as a protection, and also artemisia, mugwort. That is also protection. There are certain trees in the Celtic tradition, the rowan tree. You'll see them in the UK growing around cemeteries because they make a space sacred. The other thing that you can do for yourself, and I've done this quite a lot, is get a drop of sandalwood, real sandalwood essential oil, and just let one drop fall onto my finger, and then you put it onto C7 at the back of your neck and just pop it there. And because what that does, it's for some reason, I don't know why, I've done this for many, many years when it's been appropriate. And it stops your energy being pulled, all right? It's kind of like sealing a soft spot. And sandalwood itself, the essential oil, is all about creating a sacred space. So sacred spaces are safe, are they not? So there's some thoughts for you to consider on spiritual protection. Very happy to hear your thoughts on this. You're very welcome to contact me if you've got any questions around this. It's an interesting space to explore and play with and work out what is right for you, and really notice that there are some times when it's really important for you to do lots of protective, setting up protection for yourself, and other times not so much. But you might even know this for, kids or family members or friends too. All right. All the best. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.